News has broken that Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller now has enough evidence to charge former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn in the Trump-Russia investigation. Last weekend, we heard from sources close to the Trump-Russia investigation that, yes, indictments were finally coming. And they did. Last Monday morning, we found out about charges against Trump associates Paul Manafort and Rick Gates. We also learned about prior charges where there had already been a guilty plea against foreign policy advisor George Papadopoulos. This weekend, yesterday, in fact, we heard that once again from sources close to the probe, Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller has enough evidence to charge former Trump National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. This would be major. Prepare for the right-wing talking point. Oh, the Flynn charges aren't a huge deal. National Security Advisor, after all, isn't a cabinet position anyway. Well, that's true. NSA is not a cabinet position, but it is a West Wing of the White House position. That's where the Oval Office is. That puts criminal charges related to the Russia investigation literally across the hall from Donald Trump in the White House. Now, you'll remember, Manafort worked for Trump during the campaign. Flynn was Trump's national security advisor during the administration, during the presidency. Now, he only lasted 24 days until he was fired and or forced to resign in shame. But, oh, well, don't worry. Michael Flynn had a very, very limited role. When were we going to hear that one? And as a reminder, this is the guy in Michael Flynn that Donald Trump was specifically and explicitly warned not to hire by former President Barack Obama, the terrible guy that Donald Trump is on a crusade against, who's trying to undo everything that Barack Obama did. He was warned by Barack Obama not to hire Michael Flynn. Oh, well, let's look at Obama as the real guilty party here because Obama didn't warn us enough. And it's really all about Uranium One or something. That must be the real story. When will we hear from Sarah Huckabee Sanders about this? I presume only after the actual charges come forward. How is she going to spin it? Is it going to be, oh, listen, Obama hired him first after all. It's really Obama's fault. It's also interesting that the same source that says there's enough evidence to indict Michael Flynn at this point is saying that Michael G. Flynn, the son of Michael Flynn, also is on the chopping block here. And if Michael G. Flynn or Flynn's son sounds familiar to you, you might remember that he was involved in retweeting Pizzagate-related fake news article months ago. And at the time, when questions were asked, the defense was, oh, this is just some kid. He has nothing to do with Michael Flynn. It's just his son. Turns out he had enough to do with what Michael Flynn was up to that he also may be charged soon. But maybe not, because two sources have told NBC News that Michael Flynn, the father, might be able to keep his son, Michael G. Flynn, from being charged if he cooperates. And of course, what cooperation means depends on the circumstances. And we've been talking about that possibility for a while, right? Remember when Michael Flynn, through an attorney, I believe it was, said months ago, he's looking for immunity if he cooperates with the investigation. There may have been other explanations for that, but you don't really do that unless you're at least considering and believe you have information that would be interesting to prosecutors. We've been talking about the possibility of Flynn flipping ever since that and really bringing the hammer down on everybody. But again, we have to think about the timeline, right? Consider the meaning of charges against Flynn this early on in the investigation. First, the charges, we saw the first charges within the last month were already at National Security Advisor. Think about what that could mean for the next 6, 12, or 18 months. Flynn could be in serious trouble. It appears that he was working with Turkey to kidnap a Turkish dissident to send him back to Turkey, realistically to be executed. But we've also learned that while he was National Security Advisor, Flynn was allegedly getting cash from the Turkish government. Do you understand what it means when the National Security Advisor is getting money from a foreign power, especially one that's headed up by a total authoritarian dictator like Erdogan in Turkey? And the really wide view is that Robert Mueller must have a ton of evidence, just a ton of evidence, because if we're at NSA just weeks after the first charges, he must have a really big case that he's building here. And there's another storyline with the Flynn revelations, which is that Trump's CIA director, Mike Pompeo, might also end up being wrapped into this. We learned over the summer that Pompeo was acting a little bit strangely. The New York Times report from January, or from a couple of months ago, told us that by January of 2017, senior government and intelligence officials were already worried about Flynn. They sort of suspected that he had been compromised because of his connections to foreign powers. The CIA was at the top of the list of organizations that were concerned about Michael Flynn. But for some unexplainable reason, or at least as yet unexplained, CIA Director Mike Pompeo continued to brief Donald Trump in the Oval Office in the presence of Michael Flynn. Now, it's not clear whether Mike Pompeo, the CIA director, did this because he was deliberately in the dark at the time about Michael Flynn being compromised, which is possible but would be a little bit odd. Is it possible that Pompeo did know about what the intelligence community believed to be the truth about Michael Flynn, but he decided he didn't believe it? Or he believed it, but he didn't care? We don't know the answer to that, but these revelations about Michael Flynn, which may very, very soon lead to indictments, also raise questions about CIA Director Mike Pompeo. And of course, the new Paradise Papers leaks raise more questions about Jared Kushner, as well as Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross and their connections to Russia. And we already knew from months ago and prior disclosures that Secretary of State, the top diplomat in Donald Trump's administration, Rex Tillerson, Rexon Tillerson, as somebody called him on live calls. Rex Tillerson was the director of a Bahamas-based U.S.-Russian oil company. So this goes deep. If you still believe there's nothing here, I don't get it. But I welcome your emails explaining to me why that's what you think. Let's take a break. We'll be back after this. Today's episode of The David Pakman Show is made possible in part by Warby Parker eyeglasses. Warby Parker recently did the right thing and ditched advertising on right-wing conspiracy website Breitbart, pulling their ads off. And you can get the free 5-day home try-on from Warby Parker. Check out their glasses. I use them when I'm not wearing contact lenses. I started with the free at-home trial. They send you 5 pairs of glasses. You see which ones you like, you send them back, and whichever one you pick, they will put your prescription into. I like this because I can actually show the glasses to other people and not have to just decide on the spot like in an eyeglass store. The eyeglass industry is controlled by very few corporations that keep the prices very, very high, even over $300 for prescription glasses. With Warby Parker, they start at just $95. Mine costs that, including lenses. And for every pair sold, they give a pair to someone in need. So to try the 5 pairs and support the David Pakman Show, go to warbyparkertrial.com/TDPS.